Okay, so hi guys. For today's speaker session, we have Aman Sharma with us. He's a site reliability engineer at LinkedIn, and he'll be talking about what site reliability engineering is from his experience. So, hello, Aman sir.
Hey, hi. Hi, Arpit.
Sir, you may start.
Okay. Hey, hello, everyone. So, my name is Aman. I am working as a site reliability engineer in LinkedIn. Prior to that, I was working in Google as a technical solutions engineer. That is a role similar to SRE role. So, in this short talk, I'll be talking about what the SRE role is, what are the skills required, and what should be your interest, like to be really succeed in this role. Okay, so just give me a second. Um, Okay, cool. So I'm not really sure if every one of you understand what an SRE role exactly is. So let me just go through it once. So SRE role actually it is often mistaken as the DevOps role, but it is not. Trust me on this. So SRE role is basically a software engineering role, but it inclines more toward systems and networking. Also there is a word in this like reliability in this whole term that you can see often and often, so we'll talking about that as well. Okay, so SREs are software engineers that have expertise in systems networking and reliability. Now we'll be like going through each of these terms one by one. Systems, you guys understand, it is more like an architectural point of view. Let's say engineering team came up with an idea that okay, we need such and such microservice or such and such application, and they will like they can write the code, they can design it. But from after the designing phase, like building a whole infra on that design, maintaining that infrastructure, ensuring that we don't have any bottlenecks over there, like for example a single point of failure and all, that part is basically handled by the SRE teams. So SREs plays a major role, like after the like coming up with an architectural idea to the actual deployment phase. So SREs are a really key component in throughout that whole transition from the idea to something operational that you guys can see and experience. So that's what infrastructure here in this role is like. And what about reliability? So the major responsibility of an SRE is reliability. Now what do we mean by that? Let's say we have a microservice in place, or we have any service, let's say, in place, and like we want to ensure that that service is reliable, that service is always up. There should not be any downtime, there should be minimum downtime. So that responsibility also lies on the SRE team. Now let's say there is some downtime, or there is some issue with that service, handling that, ensuring that that never happens again in the future, remediation, and like coming up with an idea to actually fix it once and for all, that all is being taken care by SRE teams. Apart from it, like if you remember, I said earlier SREs are software engineers. So do SRE code? Yeah, we do. So SREs often like spend majority of not majority, but yeah, major portion of their time in development. Like here comes another question: what do they develop? Like what are exactly the requirements? Are they similar to that of a software engineer? No, not exactly. Let's say we are talking about designing an infra and making it making an infra. So in that case we might need some automations. Let's say when we are talking about a company that at a scale of LinkedIn, or maybe even more, maybe Facebook or Google, then in that case we cannot do everything by hand, right? We need automations in place. We need a way to automate most of our manual tasks. So that automation infrastructure also it is being developed by the SRE teams. So SRE spend majority amount of their time in development as well. So we covered two parts, that basically all three of them, that is development, infra, and reliability. So these are three major responsibilities that an SRE usually have. So okay, apart from it, what are the skills required? That skills that this role really demands: algorithms and data structures. It is a must. It is, I think, must in every role that you can think of in the industry. Majority of roles, right? Apart from it, operating systems, it is a must have. You should be very fluent in those. You should be familiar with Linux internals. You should be familiar with operating system concepts in general, right? So you should have command on OS. That is a must. Apart from it, computer networking, that is really required as well, because oftentimes when we troubleshoot something, you cannot run away from networking, no matter in which team you're working in right now. Let's say, for example, like I am working right now in a database team, but even though majority of the time troubleshooting lies in the networking section, we'll often troubleshoot packet drops and all. That happens very often. So networking, you should be very well fluent with that. Algo ds, I've already covered that, because even though you are an SRE, but you will be spending majority of your time or a major chunk of your time in coding. So algo ds are required. Yeah, there's no way you can run from that. And then high level design, that is really very important, because if you remember, I said at the very starting of this talk, then that the major task of an SRE is um, converting that infrastructure design to something actual working stuff, right? So you should be very fluent with HLT. You should know where to place which component, how to make sure everything is resilient. There should not be any single point of failures, and how to extract most out of your resources, right? So HLT is also a major, I think, a really very important skill that you should have. Okay, last but not the least, it is the troubleshooting. You should be able to troubleshoot your system, because when you have worked something at such large scale, issues will happen, and these issue will be like something that you have never seen before, or anyone would have never seen before. You won't find those, like, it won't be the case that every issue is just a search away on Stack Overflow or something else. So yeah, you will face unique challenges, so you should be good with troubleshooting. And there are some steps there as well, like you should hypothesize a problem, you should test that if that is a problem, actually come up with a fix, deploy that fix, make sure it never happens again. So it is the major component of the troubleshooting aspect. So yeah, I think that is majorly what I was intended to cover. So I am ready to take some questions if you guys have.
Uh, Anybody, please, do you have any questions? Then please post them in the chat. I'll pin them on the screen.
Guys, anything, any question you have, anything to ask, feel free. Okay, that is a good question. Yeah, it too happens, but it happens in software engineering roles as well. You have heard of something called on call. So on call shifts are something that is being done by SREs and software engineers in the industry right now. But the duration, it usually depends. Like it happens once in a month and for a week. If I talk about LinkedIn, and it is like an 8-hour shift. So during those 8 hours, you should be available, but like not exactly in front of your computer screen always, but you should carry your phone or your laptop, so just in case you get any alert from any service, you should be able to like troubleshoot it right away. But yeah, it might get unpredictable sometime. Like recently, if you have heard of a log4j vulnerability that whole industry faced recently, so at that time, yeah, that was something unpredictable. I was I was the on call at that time, so yeah, I know so our situation was not that great. So yeah, it might get unpredictable sometimes, but that happens in software engineering roles as well. You cannot run away from that. If you choose a SUI role or a SRE role, it is same across the industry.
Yeah, so let's head towards the next question. It is from Shivansh Kalra. Is it centered towards managing servers like your job as a profile?
Not exactly. It is not like SREs are just the only person that will manage servers and all. No, it is not like that. You will have teams under you as well. Teams like NetOps and all are there that will manage the infra as such. But your job as an SRE is more towards the deployment part. Like, it is not your task to manage the servers by hand or in data centers and all. That is being done by other teams.
Okay, heading towards the next question by Arbajan. How does one go about the preparation process? Okay.
Uh, if I talk about the preparation process, then like, okay, let's pick the skills one by one that are required. If we talk about algorithms and data structures, like, it is not that scale of an software engineer. You should not be like fluent with very complex algorithms and all. You should be able to write scripts, practical scripts. Like, let's say you have to write a Python script that goes to a couple of server, fetch some logs, something like that. More on the practical side, not like very algo DS heavy. If I talk about operating systems, it is more about theory. So if you are in CSE branch, then I think you will have a course in your curriculum. But if not, just pick the Galvin book and read some of the chapters. It is There is no other way around. I'm sorry about it. If I talk about Linux, it is most about practice. So get yourself familiar with it. Just remove Windows altogether. Switch to Linux, try things on your own, spend some time over there, spend some time troubleshooting. So yeah, that's the way you learn. You'll the more time you spend with Linux, the more you'll learn. Computer networks, it is again about reading somewhat theory and then again getting yourself familiar with some of the networking commands. That is all. Like, make yourself familiar with the OSI layers and try some troubleshooting commands as well, like trace, route, ping, and all. That would be helpful. HLD, high level design, I would highly recommend Core of Sense content on YouTube. I am not like, it is not a paid endorsement and all. I'm nowhere associated with it, but yeah, that is some good content on YouTube by Core of Sen. So you can check that out.
Okay, so the next question is from again Shivansh Kalra. How does peer-to-peer network like blockchain seems to disrupt the job like SRE?
Um, okay, that question is a bit of like, okay. So networks, like, it is more about, wait just a second. Okay. Oh yeah. I'm sorry for that. How does peer-to-peer network like blockchain seems to disrupt the job like SRE? It is not usually the case. It totally depends what kind of tech stack is being used. It is not the case like it is. But yeah, it usually depend on the, like, peer-to-peer networks are not really being used in the industry as of now, as far as I understand. It is more about we have software-defined networks and all, but not peer-to-peer as such. Because I think, yeah, I'm not really sure why we are not using it right now, but yeah.
And the next question is from Aaron Gupta. Which one gives better exposure to the industry, SD or SRE?
Um, it is okay. So exposure, I'm not really sure what do you mean by exposure over here, but choosing a role, either SD or SRE, is totally based on your interest. Like, if I talk about myself, I always had this inclination to work more towards the system in Linux. So that's the reason I choose SRE at first place. Also, I was totally comfortable with programming as well. So I thought SRE is a good role over there. So it usually depends on your interest. If I talk about exposure as such, both of these roles are really good. Like, SD and SRE both goes hand in hand. For example, if there is a product, let's say if I talk about the product that my team is working on, so we have a corresponding SD team for that as well as an SRE team for that. So it is not like one role will give you better exposure than other. It is not like that. It totally depends on your interest. On whichever role
Okay.
your interest aligns the most, you can choose that.
The next question is from Arpit Jain. You talked about being well versed with DS and Algo. How important is it with the SRE role while working? Okay, I
Okay.
think you have already answered it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
elaborate.
But
Yep.
like, just to add something here, like, as I said earlier, being an SRE, you will spend major chunk of your time in developing stuff. So whenever there is programming, you should be like you should be really familiar with DS and DSL. because it often, there are other benefits of that. Like if you're well versed with DSL Go, you can write code quickly with less errors and with like more accuracy and all. So yeah, if there is coding, you should be familiar with DSL Go, I think, in every role
Okay.
whatsoever.
So the next question is from Aksh Gupta. You mentioned that in somewhat different, that it is somewhat different from a DevOps role. Can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah. If I talk about DevOps role in general, then I'm not really sure if they are doing the development kind of work. Like whenever we talk about an SRE role in a DevOps role in the industry as such, it more aligns towards the deployment and operational task and all. The development there might not be related to that of product development. You might develop some stuff, but like the general notion that we have in industry when we talk about DevOps role, it is totally aligned toward like Linux systems and all, but less towards the coding. You might even find DevOps role in the companies that doesn't involve any coding at all. But when we talk about SRE, it is basically a mix of both, a mix of DevOps operational work as well as the software engineering part. So it is a mix of both. So that's that, like these two role aligns very much with each other, but at the same time they are different as well on some parameters like these.
Okay. Moving towards the next question, some anonymous guy has asked that. So, like, what's your personal preference? Do you prefer learning from videos or documentation guides or by reading books?
That totally depends on your preference. I would say it is not like one way is better than other. But if I say my personal preference, it's usually documentation and guides. Videos are somewhat like yeah, it usually depends on you, right? Sometimes it happens that you're watching a video, you think that you are getting everything from it, but when you are out there trying to do things on your own, you might not be able to do that. So I'll prefer documentation and guides and somewhat hands-on experience as well. So if you are learning purely from videos, then that might not be the best way to go.
Uh, the next question is from Kaustubh Maske Patil. What do SREs do when they are not troubleshooting some issue?
Yeah, that is a good question. So as I said earlier, when SREs are not troubleshooting, they are working on some automation or like coding some automation or coming up with some ideas that can reduce our manual effort. So let's say there occurred an issue. We'll do a postmortem on that. We'll try to identify what exactly went wrong during that phase, and then we'll try to we'll try to ensure that it doesn't happen again. So let's say a server went down and we are not able to notice that for a long time. Then, as an outcome of the postmortem, we'll come up with the idea that okay, we need some automation that can track that. Like if a node went down, we should be able to track that. So we'll come up with an automation, we'll come up with an idea, okay, we need such and such service that can track that, so we will develop those. So when SREs are not troubleshooting, they are developing something, as simple as that.
Okay. I would like to ask one question also. Like, we all know that you were the technical solution engineer at Google, and now you are the site reliability engineer at LinkedIn. So, how do you contrast the coding culture of both the companies?
uh, Again, coding culture of both the companies depends on your profile mostly. If I talk about TSE role in Google, that doesn't cover much of the coding part, because the main responsibility of that role was cloud support in general. So yeah, it was more on cloud support. If you are aware of that, that is fine. If not, I'll suggest you, there is another role in Amazon that is similar to that, that is CSA, cloud support associate. So in that role, we basically handles support tickets from the very premium customers, and we troubleshoot that. So as a TSE, mostly my time was in troubleshooting only, no coding at all. And like if there was coding, it was really very less. So that is one thing. But if I talk about from a SUI perspective, I have some software engineering friends in Google. So yeah, coding culture is great. It's great at it is again god level in Google. And if I talk about LinkedIn, then LinkedIn is more or less same as Google. Benefits are same, work culture is same. And if I say about coding culture, it is almost same as well. So if you are targeting any of these two companies, then yeah, again, and yeah, it is more or less the same. Just it differs in scale. Google operates at a much larger scale, whereas LinkedIn might not be at that scale, I would say, in terms of users and all. But yeah, Again, the work culture, the benefits, the coding culture is more or less same.
Okay. Uh, like somebody wants to ask how is the work culture at LinkedIn? Like I think he wants to elaborate.
Uh, okay, if I talk about that, so in one word, it is really very awesome. LinkedIn is a great place to work. Seriously, you can trust me on this. If I compare the work culture of both companies, Google and LinkedIn, I myself experienced no difference at all. I was at Google for like approximately a year, and I have been at LinkedIn for around 5 months now. So work culture is more or less similar as that of Google. And if I say as that of Google, then you can understand that work culture is really very great. If I go into detail, it is like work life balance is great. It is not that hectic and all. Even I'm working as an SRE, and even during the on call shifts, I would say it is not that hectic that it might get in some other companies. So yeah, work culture is really very great if you are interested in getting a role at LinkedIn, I would say.
Okay. Next question is, what do you prefer, remote working or work from home? What do you prefer? Like,
Uh, to be honest, I am working work from home since the time I joined the industry, so I might not be the best person to answer this, but I would say okay, remote versus work from home. You basically ask these two things means the same. So if I think you're talking about like non-remote or work from home. So if I talk about in office, then I think it is better, because when you are in office, when you're meeting in person with your teammates, then you will learn more. You will attend meetings with much attention, with much interest, and you will get to experience that corporate life. So that is something good, and your learning curve, I think, is more steep when you're working from your offices. But at work from home, things might get stagnant at some time. You might feel bored, you might not attending meetings with the full attention and all. So yeah, remote is better in that perspective, but work from home has its other benefits. Like, it is much easier to work from home. There are no time restrictions. You don't have to travel and all. You don't have to take care of anything if you're staying at home, basically. So yeah.
okay. Heading towards the next question. You mentioned that the importance of DSA in any role in the industry. Does CP provide some additional benefits?
Yes, for sure. CP, actually, if you are doing computer programming, you are basically improving on your accuracy, on your speed, and on your ability to finding edge cases. And trust me, that is really very important. Even if you're writing production level code, you might miss edge cases. You might come across logic that have been written already, but you are finding it difficult to understand. But if you have sufficient experience with computer programming, then trust me, your instinct will work at that scale. You will be able to understand the code faster. You will be able to come up with the optimized solution. So I would say, like, if you have time, if you are in second or your third year of engineering, then start with CP, spend some time on it daily. That will be helpful in the long run. But again, if you're in final year, focus more on lead code and geeks for your interviews.
Okay. There's a question by Aryan. Why did you switch from Google? What were your reasons?
Uh, Actually, I wouldn't say I switched from Google. I switched from the role itself. I was looking forward to make the transition from the TAC to the SRE role. So that's what I did. Switching from Google was never my intention. It was more of switching my profile. Because TAC was, as I said again, it was cloud support. And the development aspect of that role was not that much. There was no development at all, or it was in very limited amount. So I thought I should switch from that profile to a profile that has more development in there. That's the reason I switched from TAC to SRE.
Okay. Now we have the next question by Arpit. How's the division between teams at your workplace? Do you get the to interact with each other's department, having insight on how it is going with the other teams?
Okay, so the division between the teams at workplace, it is more like teams are being different products and different teams. It is like that. Also, at the same time, let's say there is a product X, so that product will have teams in both in US and in India. I'm talking about LinkedIn generally, not any other company. So in that case, that happens. So profiles, teams are profile product specific, and whether or not I get to interact with other teams, it actually depends on the type of project that I am working. If I'm working on a project that needs me to interact with other teams, I'll do that. And if it is just a project that I can something very internal to the team, then in that case I won't. But yeah, that is basically that what happens like when we interact with the other teams. It is like that.
Okay. So, like when you must have joined a company, you would have gone through an initial training period. So, how was
Hmm.
it like? What was the experience to you? And how long did it take to complete the training?
It was great. So onboard, that phase we usually call onboarding period. So it is different in different companies, like the amount of time it would take. But again, it is around a month in pretty much all the companies. So during that phase, you'll go through some documentation, you'll go through some videos, you'll set up your work machine the way your team wants you to do that. You will understand different tooling that the company has, or different alerting mechanisms. If you're an SR, you'll understand alerting mechanisms, because you have to act on those alerts someday. So yeah, that what happens. But basically, it is all really very chill, I would say. It is not like something time specific that hey, you have to complete this much amount of work in this time. It is not like that. Take it very slowly, and during the whole onboarding phase you can learn pretty much, like, as much as you want. There are no some restrictions as such.
Okay. Moving to the next question, like how does an SRE role fare in the longer run? What roles can SRE graduate to and their responsibilities?
Okay, SRE role in the longer run is like, if you understand what, like how a SUI role would be in longer run, it is like that. Once you're an SRE, then you will move to senior SRE, then staff SRE and all. So like as an SRE, very entry level SRE, you might not do much of the designing work, but as you transition more into senior roles, you will get more of that responsibility. So as you grow more into the role, you will get promoted to the upper levels, and your responsibilities increases as well. And what roles can SREs graduate to? There is again a question: why do you want to move out of the SRE role, right? If you have chosen that role, then, like, in the first place that you're interested in it, then you can, like, grow yourself, grow into this role. But if you want to switch from this role to other, then you can do that as well. I have seen SREs being moved to the software engineer role, and software engineer from SREs role as well. It happens all the time. So it is not like that. So I think I have answered your question.
So, I think we have done with the questions. So, sir, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah. So like you guys should take some time. You should understand what role you are really interested in. Like, take some time, think well, think what are your interests are, where they align well, and just make the right choice. And if you need any help from me, any more questions, any suggestions or anything, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. So, thank you, Aman, sir, for joining with us and guiding us with your precious words and experience. Thank you very much. Thank you
Yeah,
all
thank you.
for joining with us.
Yeah, bye bye.
So, hey everybody, this was a great session by Aman Sharma. Next, we are heading towards with the session of Arvind sir. Due to some health issues, Atri sir won't be joining us today. So we'll meet at 3:30 on the same channel. Thank you.